The Garden Report is brought to you by FanDuel, the exclusive wagering partner of the CLNS Media Network.
I am Josue Pavon. He is Bobby Manning. And, we talk a lot about the second unit, about the starting lineup. I know, Bobby, you love that topic. But when Kristaps Porzingis found himself in foul trouble, it was Al Horford who came off the bench, but it was also Oshae Brissett who came up big, if you ask me, coming in, grabbing those second chance opportunities, those, 3 offensive rebounds in like the first 5 minutes. I thought that made a huge difference for the Celtics team in terms of just switching the momentum towards the end of that first quarter, where it felt like Miami was going to be able to grab that double-digit lead into the second quarter.
Yeah, and nice to see him come in and know exactly what he's going to do, because some guys coming off the bench for this team the last couple of years, they're floating in the corner, they're not involved, they're not finding ways to get the ball.
They're usually intimidated, that's true.
Yeah, and he's a guy who struggled to shoot in the preseason, and for him to not put himself in those positions where he's just launching up threes to get the ball. The first play was Jalen's and one free throw that he missed, and he tapped the ball off a Heat player, and I think it ended up turning into another offensive rebound for him that Hauser, I think, hit a 3 off of. So they turned into scoring opportunities too. And he just looked poised out there, looked like he belonged. He fit into the defense too. So he wasn't a guy that the Heat could pick on. So this is a guy that didn't play opening night. I think everybody wondered coming out of that game, given that they only had 12 bench points, why didn't they try anyone else? And it didn't look early like they were going to do it in this game either. Joe said after the game that he planned to put Oshae in the beginning of the second, but the game called for some rebounding, some energy there after a little bit of a slow start, and he provided quickly.
Yeah, he did for sure, and that's exactly the reason why I think that you grab someone like that, right? I don't think it's the shooting or what he can do in terms of on his offense, right? I feel like it comes down to the rebounding, hustle plays, cleaning the glass, stuff that they're gonna need, especially when they're playing a team like the Miami Heat, that physicality that, Joe Mazzulla has been preaching about all through training camp.
Yeah, and he laughed in the locker room after. He's like, I'd love to play 30 minutes. I think I should, but, if you're only going to get a couple minutes here or there, you got to make the most of those. And he seems like he's a guy who's going to handle not playing some nights, playing in others. I know the chat seemed pretty excited about him being a guy who could contribute potentially every night, maybe overtake Hauser. I won't rule it out because he did have a nice, consistent roll off those Pacers benches. But you look at the variety of guys they have off this bench, the different matchups they'll see throughout the year. I figure he's going to be a guy who kind of flows in and out. But I love his game. The Pacers fans and our friend Caitlin Cooper, who's been on the show a bunch, said you're going to notice the hustle and intensity of this guy, diving for balls, rebounding. He was a great rebounder at Syracuse, as I remember covering him there, and it's translated to the league. So it is interesting, Josue. They need a little bit of rebounding. So maybe he's a guy that can be a specialist in that regard, because they don't have a lot of great rebounders across the board outside of Tatum.
What did you make of the second unit overall? I know I mentioned, Al checked in. The same sort of structure that we saw in Game 1. However, like you said, Oshae Brissett, he didn't play in Game 1, right? There was some differences there. Peyton Pritchard struggled a little bit. I felt like the Miami Heat did a really good job of sort of picking on him on defense. You saw him in a lot of unfortunate switches down low, which is exactly what the Miami Heat are really good at doing. But overall, what did you make of the Celtics' second unit?
They're going to have to experiment a little bit. Tonight's another night. You look at Hauser, and he didn't play well early. He was a big part of the Heat jumping on that second unit and taking advantage of them there. So you're going to have to decide quickly in games, I think, once he comes in, whether he has it or not, and then pivot in a different direction. So I'll give Joe credit for that. Porzingis being in foul trouble and still navigating it with Horford, who had 10 rebounds even though he didn't score, worked out well, and he closed the game, of course, after Porzingis fouled out. So this is a much better game for the second unit. You mentioned Pritchard. Still doesn't feel like he's found his role consistently in this team yet. I
just think back to back.
All it takes is a night off for another guy.
Well, that too. But I feel like the back-to-back matchups. Well, not that they played back-to-back, but a team like the New York Knicks and then go to a team like the Miami Heat. I just felt like it was just a tough matchup for him.
Yeah, definitely. And the thing everyone on this roster seems to understand, we talked about with Jalen in the last video, is that it might not be your night this night, but it could very easily be your night the next night. And who would be surprised if, I don't know, Holiday takes Monday off and Pritchard suddenly has a major role against the Wizards? I don't think it would shock anybody. So that's all I think he needs. A little bit more ball time, a little bit more minutes. He hasn't played a ton yet either, and I think he'll be showing what he's capable of. The one thing I do like about him is that he's hit shots so far when he's had the opportunities. So that's what you're looking for from him. It's not going to be the triple-double and preseason 20, 30-point games we saw from him.
What did you make of, well, not that what did you make of, but like this whole lineup by committee thing that Joe Mazzulla said earlier? I'm starting to think that
Doesn't
that's not,
seem like it's going to happen.
Well,
right?
I don't know if that's what he meant. I think he worded it. I don't know if that's exactly what he was trying to say. Okay, like
He said we're going to have a bunch of different lineups this year.
I think he just meant that in general. Like, I feel like when people hear that quote, when people hear that quote, they're like, oh, he's going to switch up the starting five.
You're talking about me.
I'm talking about switching. Well, yeah, that's true. But you're not the only one, right? He's talking about switches. He's talking about which line's going to end the game, which is something he's brought up as well. Like,
they've done double big off the bench.
Right. He's like, man, like he said, what was it? What about the other 35 minutes? You know, when you usually make that first switch out of, you know, one of the guys, one of the starters. And I think that's what's going to be driving him crazy, right? Like, we talk about, you know, positions 7, 8, and 9. You know, who's going to lock those down? Is Sam Howell going to be in the mix all season long? Who knows? I mean, there's a lot of competition. There's a lot of different options and different ways, you know, that something can go about it. And let's say by game, I don't know, 10 or game 12 or game 15, it could be different compared to game 25 or game 30, you know, throughout an 82-game regular season.
And circumstances can change it. Injuries, availability, all that.
And that's
that
always a given. That's going to happen.
Yeah, that might be where you find the different combinations. But you're right. Based on what we've seen the first 2 games, it does seem like they really like that group we've seen to start both games.
Right.
And given the center depth and questions around that on the team, it does make some sense to bring Horford off the bench. So I think we'll discuss as the season goes on how involved and active he is and how successful he is off the bench. I think he's done a good job the first 2 games, but it hasn't been the typical Al, especially tonight, you know, knocking down threes and being a bigger part of the offense. But that's what happens when you bring in Porzingis. He has to take a back seat, and if this is what the Horford in a smaller role looks like, they can probably live with it. You're 2-0.
Yeah, I mean, you're looking pretty good on both ends of the floor if you ask me too. So that's always a good thing. Boston Celtics defeated the Miami Heat 119-111 here at TD Garden. They improved to 2-0 on the young regular season. He is Bobby Manning. I am Josue Pavon. We will be at the Auerbach Center this weekend for some coverage. Celtics gonna squeeze in one more practice before they head to DC to take on the Wizards Monday night. So you can check us out there, and of course check out all of our coverage on Celtics All Access. I had a really good time with those New Yorkers. You know, outside of MSG. Don't let the tape tell you otherwise, all right? It was fun, right? That's what we do here. We have fun. That's exactly why we did that in New York. If you haven't seen it, please go check that out. And, of course, all the other content that we'll have up throughout the day, or at least by the end of the day, Saturday, when the Celtics head to the Auerbach Center before heading out to D.C. I am Josue Pavon. He is Bobby Manning. This has been the Guard Report, and we'll see you guys next time.
The CLNS Media Network is powered by FanDuel. Sign up at FanDuel.com/Boston and get in on the action with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose.
Ever wish you could navigate the betting field with the confidence of a pro? Enter Odds Are. They're not a sports book, but they're the sports betting advisor you always needed. It's like having a playbook for smarter bets right in your pocket. I've been absolutely loving the experience, and I think you will too. Especially since Celtics All Access listeners get a 30-day free trial. Elevate your game day and join the smart betting revolution. Go get it at oddsr.com/Celtics. That's oddsr.com/Celtics.